The shy girl revealed a hidden mark during her exam, and the billionaire doctor froze when he saw it. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The fluorescent lights inside Carter Medical Institute hummed softly, washing the hallway in a pale glow that made everything look colder than it really was. Through the glass door of exam room 4, a small figure sat curled on the edge of the padded table, her shoulders rounded inward, as if trying to take up less space in the world. Her name was Mara Bennett, 22 years old. Quiet, careful, almost invisible by choice. Her hands were clasped so tightly around the sleeves of her oversized hoodie that her knuckles had turned white. She kept her eyes down, watching the tips of her sneakers tap against the metal footrest. Every sound in the clinic made her flinch a little, the beeping monitors, the rustle of paper gowns, the distant roll of a medical cart. It all felt too bright, too sharp, too focused on her. Mara hated medical exams, but today she had no choice. The strange ache in her side had worsened over the past week, and the discoloration of the skin near her ribcage had alarmed her so much that even her fear could not stop her from coming. She whispered to herself, "Just breathe. Just get through it. No one here knows you." But that was before the door opened. Dr. Adrian Hale stepped inside as calmly as if he owned the room, because in many ways, he did. Billionaire physician, founder of Hale Integrative Medicine, and the man whose breakthroughs had changed modern diagnostics. His presence carried a quiet authority, sharpened by the crisp white coat and the soft click of the pen he held. He scanned the chart first, then looked at her. Mara immediately tensed. His eyes were kind, but direct. Too direct. Like he could see past the layers she had carefully built around her life. "Good afternoon, Mara," he said, voice warm but steady. "I understand you have been experiencing discomfort. We are going to take this one step at a time, all right?" She nodded without looking up. He spoke gently, guiding her to lift her hoodie just enough so he could examine the area she had described. Even that simple request made heat rush to her cheeks. She felt exposed, not in a physical sense, but in a way she could not fully explain. She inhaled shakily and tugged the fabric up. The moment the strange mark on her skin came into view, everything changed. Adrian froze. His breath stopped. His eyes widened just slightly, but enough for her to notice. He leaned closer, but not with the clinical detachment of a doctor. There was something else in his expression, recognition, disbelief, and something that looked painfully like memory. Mara's heart kicked hard against her ribs. Was something wrong with her? Had he seen this before? Why did he look like someone had just pulled the ground out from under him? He did not touch her. He simply stared at the unusual pattern beneath her skin, the branching discoloration that looked almost like a shadow trapped inside her body. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower, thinner. "Mara, when did this first appear?" She swallowed, barely able to form words. "A few years ago. Doctors said it was harmless. Just odd-looking." But Adrian was not listening to generic explanations anymore. He was staring at the mark like it was a ghost. Because this exact pattern, this rare vascular signature, should not exist on anyone except one patient from his past. A patient whose case still haunted him. A case that had changed the course of his entire medical career. He blinked, his throat tightening. "This cannot be happening," he whispered under his breath. Mara's pulse spiked. She tried to pull her hoodie down again, but his hand rose instinctively, not touching her, just stopping the movement. "Please, give me one more moment," he said softly. "This is important." His tone sent a chill down her spine. For the first time in years, Mara wished she had never come here at all. And yet, something deep inside her, something as fragile as a match flame, wondered if this moment might be the beginning of an answer she had been running from her whole life. Something was wrong, and Dr. Adrian Hale knew exactly what it was. Mara's breath felt thin as she pulled her hoodie back down, trying to hide the strange mark as if covering it could erase the fear rising in her chest. The room felt colder than before, even though nothing had changed except the look in Dr. Adrian Hale's eyes. It was not judgment. It was not curiosity. It was something far heavier. He stepped back and drew a slow breath, as if grounding himself. "Mara," he said gently, "I need to order a few tests. Nothing invasive. Just imaging and blood work. I want to understand exactly what we are dealing with." Her fingers tightened around the edge of the exam table. Is it serious?" His silence said more than words ever could. But then he softened his tone. "Let us not jump to conclusions. What matters is that you are here now." Mara nodded, even though her stomach twisted. She had lived most of her life avoiding doctors, avoiding attention, avoiding anything that made her feel exposed. Now she was stuck inside the brightest room she had ever been in, under the gaze of a man who seemed to know something she did not. A technician arrived and guided her through the scans. Adrian remained outside the imaging room, pacing slowly, his hands clasped behind him. Every once in a while he stopped, stared at the floor, and inhaled deeply, as if shaken by a memory he could not ignore. When the tests were finished, Mara returned to the small consultation area. Adrian entered with a tablet in hand, but his expression had softened again, changed from the shock earlier into something more composed. "I reviewed the images," he said, pulling up a chair. "You have a rare vascular formation. It is not dangerous at this moment, but it needs monitoring. The discomfort you are feeling may be related to inflammation around the area." She blinked. "So, I am not dying?" His eyes met hers, warm and steady. "No, you are not dying." A wave of relief washed through her, almost knocking the strength out of her shoulders. "But," he continued carefully, "I do need you to come back for follow-up assessments. This condition can evolve. I want to make sure we stay ahead of it." Mara nodded again, though her first instinct was to run. Doctors had always confused her, overwhelmed her, or dismissed her concerns entirely. Adrian, however, was different. He spoke to her as if she mattered, as if her fear was a real part of the diagnosis. He handed her a small note card. "These are breathing techniques I want you to practice when you start feeling pain. They will help calm the inflammation cycle." Her eyes widened slightly. "You wrote these yourself?" "Yes," he said with a faint smile. "I used to give these to a patient with a similar condition." A shadow crossed his face as he said it. The same shadow she had noticed earlier. The one that made her wonder what story lay behind that calm exterior. She slipped the note card into her hoodie pocket. "Thank you. For now," he said, standing tall again. "Go home, rest, and avoid strenuous activity." She nodded, but then hesitated near the door. "Dr. Hale, earlier, when you saw the mark, you looked like you had seen it before." He froze for a moment. Then he said quietly, "I had." Her pulse fluttered. "On who?" He met her eyes with a sincerity she had not expected. "Someone I could not save." The air shifted between them, heavy, fragile, and full of unspoken things. Mara stepped outside the clinic into the cool afternoon air, clutching the note card in her pocket like it was a lifeline. She had come here for answers, and instead she had walked straight into the past of a man who seemed far too composed to carry scars. As she walked down the sidewalk, she did not see Adrian standing inside the glass doorway, watching her leave with an expression that blended worry, recognition, and an unsettling sense of fate. He whispered to himself, "It is happening again." Because whatever haunted his past had just walked back into his life wearing a faded hoodie and nervous eyes. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the thin curtains of Mara's small studio apartment, landing on the cluttered desk where her sketchbook lay open. She had tried to draw last night, hoping the familiar motion would calm her nerves, but every line came out shaky. Her mind kept replaying one moment, the way Dr. Adrian Hale had whispered, "Someone I could not save." It echoed louder than the hum of the city below. She pressed a hand against her side. The discomfort was still there, dull and lingering. She knew she needed rest, but her thoughts refused to settle. The note card he had given her lay on the nightstand. She picked it up, tracing the handwritten instructions with her thumb. His handwriting was clean, steady, almost comforting. She whispered to herself, "He cared enough to write this for me." But the thought made her chest tighten. She was not used to anyone caring. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "This is Dr. Hale. Please let me know if the pain increases today. Even small changes matter." She stared at the message, unsure how to feel. Her fingers hovered over the screen before she finally typed, "It is the same as yesterday. I am okay." 2 seconds later, his reply arrived. "I'm glad to hear that. Please do the breathing routine. It will help more than you expect." She set the phone down, surprised at how a simple text could make the apartment feel less empty. Across town, Adrian stood in his office on the top floor of Carter Medical Institute. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline, but he barely noticed the view. He paced slowly, replaying the scanned images in his mind. The vascular pattern was identical. The same branching discoloration. The same rare formation that had taken the life of a young patient years ago. He had promised himself he would never let that happen again. He pulled up Mara's file on his screen, rereading the notes even though he had memorized them. Her symptoms were mild now, but mild symptoms could turn severe without warning. He needed more tests, more data, more certainty. He exhaled sharply. Why her? Why now? A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Nurse Taylor stepped inside. Dr. Hale, the board meeting starts in 10 minutes. He nodded, but his jaw tightened. He was expected to present financial updates, yet his mind was nowhere near spreadsheets. As the nurse turned to leave, he said quietly, "If Mara Bennett calls, page me immediately." The nurse paused, eyebrows raised slightly. "Of course, doctor." When the door closed, Adrian rested his hands on the desk, grounding himself. The memory of that previous case crept back in. The small girl who had trusted him, the one he had promised to save. He had worked day and night, studied every treatment option, called specialists across the country, but the disease progressed too fast. Her father had looked at him with eyes full of hope, then grief. Adrian swallowed hard. He had chosen medicine to save lives, but that loss had carved a mark in him deeper than anything he showed to the world. And now Mara had the same condition. He could not allow history to repeat itself. That afternoon, Mara tried to distract herself with her shift at the supermarket. She scanned groceries mechanically, offering polite smiles to customers, but her mind kept drifting back to the clinic. She wondered if Adrian was still thinking about her condition, or if she was simply one patient among thousands. By late evening, the pain near her ribs flared again, sharp enough to make her wince. She slipped into the break room and sat down, breathing slowly like the note card instructed. The technique helped a little, but the ache lingered. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Adrian. "Just checking on you. How is your pain level now?" She blinked in surprise. She had not told him it increased. Had he simply sensed it? Or was he monitoring more closely than she realized? She typed back, "It hurts more than earlier." A moment later, her phone rang. She almost dropped it. "Hello," her voice trembled. "Mara, I need you to come in tomorrow morning," Adrian said, his tone gentle but firm. "I want to run a more advanced scan. I have seen this pattern before, and I do not want to wait." Her heartbeat sped up. "Is it really that serious?" There was a pause, too long, too quiet. "It could be," he answered honestly. "But if we act early, we can manage it. I need you to trust me." Trust. The word felt heavy. She looked around the break room, the flickering fluorescent bulb, the peeling paint, the vending machine humming in the corner. This was her world. Small, predictable, and safe, until yesterday. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I will come." "Good," he said softly. "And Mara, you are not alone in this." The call ended, but her chest felt warmer. Scared, but warm. An hour later, as Adrian walked through the quiet hospital corridor, he stopped by the pediatric wing, something he rarely did anymore. The room where his former patient had stayed was empty, lights dim, bed perfectly made. The memory hurt, but he forced himself to face it. He whispered, "I will not fail again." Because tomorrow, Mara Bennett would walk back through his door. And this time, he was ready. The next morning, the sky over the city was still tinted with soft gray when Mara stepped off the bus in front of Carter Medical Institute. The air was cool enough to nip at her cheeks, but the twist in her stomach was what truly made her shiver. She clutched her sketchbook to her chest, more out of instinct than intention. It was the only thing that ever grounded her. Inside the lobby, everything felt too bright, too clean, too polished. She wished she could disappear into her hoodie, but she forced herself forward until she reached the reception desk. I have an appointment with Dr. Hale," she said softly. The receptionist smiled warmly. "Yes, he is expecting you. Please take the elevator to the 5th floor." Mara nodded and stepped inside the elevator, her reflection trembling in the mirrored walls. As the doors opened, Adrian was already waiting in the hallway. He had changed from his usual clinical expression. Today his face carried a quiet intensity, a mixture of focus and something that looked like hope. "Mara," he said, offering a gentle nod. Thank you for coming. She tried to smile, but nerves pinned her lips in place. You said it was important. It is, he replied, turning to lead her down the hall. I want to understand what is happening in your body before it can escalate. The scan I am ordering today will give us a deeper look. They entered a room filled with soft beeps and the low hum of machinery. The technician prepared the imaging equipment while Adrian explained each step in a calm voice, making sure she understood what would happen. His presence steadied her more than she wanted to admit. When the technician began the scan, Adrian stood behind the glass wall, arms crossed but shoulders tense. His eyes did not leave the monitor for a second. Mara lay still, staring at the ceiling, wondering why a man like him, a billionaire, a world-class doctor, was giving her so much attention. As soon as the scan ended, Adrian asked the technician to forward the images to his office. Then he offered Mara a cup of warm chamomile tea, the steam rising gently between them. Sit with me, he said, guiding her into a quieter consultation room. I want to go through the results carefully. Mara wrapped both hands around the cup, letting the heat soothe her. Is it going to be worse than yesterday? He took a slow breath and sat across from her. I will not jump to conclusions. I have learned that assumptions can destroy more than they help. She nodded, but his tone struck her. It carried the weight of experience, pain, and regret. Something inside her chest tightened for him. Moments later, his tablet chimed with the incoming scan results. He opened the images, and as they loaded, Mara saw his expression shift again, not shock this time, but confirmation. The kind that made her heart stutter. He turned the screen toward her, pointing to the illuminated vascular lines. This pattern, it is extremely rare. It behaves unpredictably. But now that I have seen the deeper scan, I know exactly what we are dealing with. She swallowed hard. Is it the same condition that the other patient had? He paused, his eyes softening. Yes, the same one. But her case progressed because we did not detect it early enough. With you, we are ahead of it. Mara stared at the glowing lines on the screen, feeling a cold wave wash over her. So I might end up like her? He leaned forward immediately, his voice firm but gentle. No. You came here before the dangerous symptoms appeared. That alone changes everything. Something in his certainty steadied her trembling breath. He continued, I want to start a treatment plan today. It will involve medication, lifestyle adjustments, and monitoring. But I need a promise from you. She blinked. A promise. Yes, he said quietly. That you will not face this alone. That you will come to me if anything changes. That you will let me help you. His sincerity disarmed her. No one had ever asked to help her. No one had ever insisted that her life mattered this much. I will, she whispered. He exhaled, relieved. Good. That is all I ask. For a moment, the room felt still, too still. Mara looked down at her sketchbook resting on her lap. She hesitated, then opened it to a page filled with soft graphite shading and delicate lines. It was a drawing of her own hands, trembling but steady enough to hold a pencil. Adrian's gaze landed on the page, and something flickered in his eyes. You draw beautifully, he said softly. She blushed, closing the sketchbook halfway. It helps me think. Then keep drawing, he murmured. Healing is not only about the body. It is also about what keeps you whole. His words wrapped around her like a warm blanket, comforting in a way she could not explain. A nurse knocked lightly on the door. Dr. Hale, your next meeting is waiting. Adrian nodded but kept his eyes on Mara. I will call you this evening to check on your symptoms. And Mara, I am glad you came back. She stood slowly, clutching her sketchbook again. Thank you, Dr. Hale. As she stepped out into the hallway, the world felt different. The lights were still harsh, the floors still glossy, but something inside her had shifted. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen. Not as a burden, not as a problem, but as someone worth saving. Behind her, Adrian glanced at the scan again, jaw tightening with determination. He whispered to himself, this time, I will not lose. For the next several days, Mara followed every instruction Adrian had given her. She took the medication exactly on time, avoided long shifts at the supermarket, and practiced the breathing exercises whenever the pain tightened under her ribs. Some mornings were easier. Some nights were not. But every day, without fail, Adrian checked on her. Sometimes he called. Sometimes he sent short, steady messages like, how is the discomfort today? Or, remember to rest after work. And sometimes he sent longer ones, reminding her she was not facing this alone. At first, she did not know how to respond. No one had ever cared for her with this level of consistency. Over time, however, her replies came more naturally. Short at first, thoughtful later, and slowly, a fragile thread formed between them. 3 days after the advanced scan, Adrian asked her to return for a progress check. When Mara entered his office, she noticed something new. On the small table beside his desk sat a cup of chamomile tea already waiting for her, steam curling upward like a soft welcome. "I made it fresh," he said with a warm smile. "I remember you relax better with it." She held the cup carefully. "You did not have to do this." "I know," he replied. "But it helps. And so I am doing it." Her cheeks warmed with a shy blush she tried to hide. He gestured for her to sit as he reviewed the updated readings on his tablet. "The inflammation is stabilizing," he said slowly. "That is a good sign. Your body is responding well to the treatment." Her shoulders relaxed a little. "So it will not get worse?" "We are buying time," he answered honestly. "Real progress will take consistency and patience. But you are doing everything right." She let out a soft breath she did not realize she had been holding. Then Adrian leaned back slightly, studying her with a thoughtful expression. "There is something I want to try," he said. "A monitored routine that might reduce the flare-ups even more. It involves a breathing pattern, guided stretching, and short rest cycles." Mara nodded. "I can do that." He stood and motioned toward the small therapy room connected to his office. Inside, the lighting was dimmer, the atmosphere calmer than the main clinic. A cushioned bench sat near the window, and sunlight spilled across the floor like a warm blanket. "Sit here," he instructed softly. "I will walk you through it." She settled onto the bench, her fingers gripping her knees nervously. Adrian pulled a small stool closer so he could guide her without crowding her space. "Close your eyes," he said gently. "Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold, and exhale slowly." His voice was steady, almost soothing. She followed his instructions, even though her pulse raced from the closeness. He continued guiding her through a series of mindful breaths until her shoulders relaxed and the tension around her ribcage eased. "You are doing very well," he murmured. She opened her eyes slowly, noticing that the pain had faintly lifted. "It helps," she said, surprised. "I did not think anything would work this fast." He smiled softly. "When the body is calm, it heals more efficiently. Fear fuels inflammation more than people realize." Her gaze lowered. "I guess I am afraid a lot." "You have every right to be," he replied. "But you are still showing up. That alone says more about your strength than anything else." The words struck her deeper than she expected. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. For a moment, neither of them moved. The sunlight warmed her face, and the quiet hum of the clinic created a cocoon of stillness around them. Adrian watched her with a look that was no longer just clinical concern. It was something gentler, something that carried meaning. But then he shifted slightly, as if reminding himself to stay composed. "There is one more thing," he said, clearing his throat. "I want you to keep track of your symptoms in your sketchbook." She blinked. "My sketchbook?" "Yes," he said with certainty. "You express yourself best through drawing. Use that strength. Draw what the pain feels like, or how your breathing changes. Anything you notice. It will help me understand your condition better." She hesitated, then nodded. "I can do that." "Good." He smiled again. "And one day, when you are stronger, I want you to show me your art. All of it." Her breath caught. She looked down, flustered, clutching the sketchbook to her chest. As they walked back toward the main hall, Adrian placed a gentle hand on the doorframe, watching her step into the corridor with that familiar shy posture. "Take care today, Mara," he said softly. "Rest when you get home. And remember, progress is happening." She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you, Dr. Hale." After she disappeared around the corner, Adrian remained standing there, deep in thought. Because the more time he spent with her, the more he felt something growing inside him, something he had tried to avoid for years. And he knew that whatever was happening between them was only just beginning. Over the next week, Adrian watched Mara change in quiet, meaningful ways. Her symptoms did not vanish, but the sharp flare-ups softened. Her breathing steadied. Her posture relaxed. And every time she entered his office, she held her sketchbook a little less like a shield and a little more like something she was willing to share. One afternoon, he received a notification that she had arrived early for her appointment. By the time he stepped into the hallway, he found her standing near the window, sunlight brushing across her face. She was flipping through her sketchbook, studying the pages as if gathering courage. "You are early today," he said gently. She looked up, startled for a moment, then nodded. "The pain was less today, so I came sooner. I thought, maybe that is a good sign." "It is," he replied with a warm smile. "It means the treatment is doing its job." He led her into the therapy room where the lighting was soft and the air felt calmer. She sat on the cushioned bench, and he pulled up a stool, keeping a comfortable distance but close enough to guide her through the routine. "Let us start with your breathing cycle," he said. "Deep breath in, hold, slow exhale." She followed his voice, her shoulders dropping as the tension melted away. After a few minutes, he nodded with approval. "You have improved a lot," he said. "Your body is responding well." Mara hesitated before opening her sketchbook to a fresh page. "I drew something for the tracking you asked for." He leaned in slightly as she revealed a set of soft pencil sketches. One drawing showed twisting lines that resembled the ache in her ribs. Another captured the tightness in her chest on difficult nights. The last one depicted lighter, steadier lines, her breathing on a better day. Adrian studied the drawings with quiet awe. "This is incredible, Mara. You have captured what words cannot describe. It helps me understand what is happening inside me," she whispered. "And maybe it can help you too." "It does," he answered sincerely. "More than you know." For a moment, their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Something fragile, but unmistakably real. Adrian cleared his throat gently. "I want to show you something." He walked to a nearby cabinet, and pulled out a small, slim binder filled with printed medical notes and old hand-drawn diagrams. "This belonged to my former patient," he said quietly. "The one whose condition resembled yours." Mara's breath caught. "You kept all of this?" "Yes," he said, his voice low. "I studied every detail for years. I promised myself that if I ever saw this condition again, I would be ready." She touched the edge of the binder carefully, almost reverently. "You have carried this for a long time." "I have," he admitted. "But not because of guilt alone. Because I want to save the next person." She looked up at him, her eyes softening. "And you think I could be that person?" "I know you are," he said without hesitation. The room fell silent, warm, steady, full of meaning. Just then, the clock in the hallway chimed the hour, breaking the moment but not the connection between them. Adrian stood and straightened his coat. "Let us continue monitoring your progress closely. Your next check-in will tell us even more." Mara closed her sketchbook and rose slowly. "Thank you for everything." "You do not have to thank me," he replied gently. "Healing is a partnership. We are in this together." As she walked toward the door, she paused, her hand lingering on the frame. "For the first time," she said softly, "I trust you, Dr. Hale." He felt the words hit deeper than she realized. After she left, Adrian remained in the empty room, staring at the sketches she had shown him. Each line carried her fear, her courage, and her resilience. And as he held the images in his mind, he knew one undeniable truth. He was no longer driven only by his past failure. He was driven by her. For a few days, everything seemed steady. Mara followed her routine. The treatment continued to ease her symptoms, and Adrian monitored every update with a calm but dedicated focus. But beneath that calm surface, something darker had begun to stir. It started with a small detail Adrian caught during a late-night review of her medical history. He was sitting alone in his office, the city lights glowing beyond the glass walls, when he noticed a discrepancy in the hospital records from years ago. A note attached to the file of his former patient, something he had not seen before. The notation read, "Cause of complications, possible interference with medication schedule." His brows tightened. He pulled the archived file closer, scrolling through timestamps, comparing signatures, dosage logs, and the recorded treatments. There were gaps, minutes missing, dosages altered, and initials that did not match his or any nurse he remembered working with. He whispered under his breath, "This was not a natural progression. Someone tampered with her treatment." A chill swept through him. He immediately pulled up Mara's recent digital chart. Her logs were clean, consistent, secure, but the realization hit him like a blow to the chest. If someone had interfered with his former patient, then the same person might still be working in the system. And Mara, with the same condition, could be at risk. Adrian stood abruptly, frustration and fear tightening his voice. Not again. I will not let this happen again. The memory he had buried, of that child's father pleading for answers, and Adrian having none, rose painfully to the surface. For years, he had blamed himself. But now, the truth was cracking open. It might never have been his failure at all. He closed the file, locked the screen, and headed straight to the lower administrative wing. His footsteps echoed sharply as he reached the records department. A clerk recognized him immediately. "Dr. Hale? How can I assist you?" "I need access to the staffing logs from the previous pediatric rotation," he said firmly. "Specifically from the year of the Carter case." The clerk hesitated. "Those are restricted. Unlock them," Adrian said, his tone controlled but cold. "This is a matter of patient safety." Minutes later, he had the names. And when he saw one particular name on both lists, the past case and Mara's current case, his jaw tightened. Dr. Rowan Ellis, a senior researcher, a man who had been quietly circling Adrian's projects for years. A man Adrian had clashed with over experimental dosing. Adrian felt a surge of anger. "So it was you." The sense of betrayal hit hard. Rowan had manipulated data, twisted protocols, and hidden behind technicalities. And now, Adrian feared he might try something again. The next morning, Mara returned for her routine check. She stepped into the clinic with her sketchbook tucked under her arm, unaware of the storm brewing behind the scenes. Adrian greeted her with his usual warmth, but there was a tension in his eyes she had never seen before. "Good morning," she said softly. "Good morning," he replied, forcing a smile. "How is your pain today?" "Better," she answered. "The breathing exercises help a lot." "I am glad," he said, though his voice carried an edge. "We will move quickly through your check today. I have additional work to handle after." Mara sensed the shift immediately. "Is something wrong?" He paused for a moment, choosing his words. "You are safe," he said gently. "But I need to make sure nothing jeopardizes your treatment." Her throat tightened. "I do not understand." "You do not need to," he said softly. "Just trust me, like you said you would." She nodded, though worry flickered in her eyes. He guided her through the exam, careful and focused, but his mind kept returning to Rowan's name and the file logs. Someone had endangered a patient before. Someone might do it again. And he would not let that happen to Mara. After finishing the assessment, he looked at her with a steady gaze. "Mara, listen carefully," he said. "Until further notice, I am personally overseeing every part of your treatment." She blinked. "Personally?" "Yes," he said with certainty. "Every dose, every check-in, every chart entry. No exceptions." Her breath caught. "Why?" "Because your life matters," he answered softly. "And I refuse to let the past repeat itself." Mara stood still, clutching her sketchbook, feeling a wave of fear mixed with something deeper, a sense that this man was fighting for her with everything he had. What she did not know was that Adrian Hale was preparing for a confrontation that could cost him his career. But losing her? That was the one risk he would never take. For the next 48 hours, Adrian barely slept. He reviewed logs, verified medication batches, cross-checked signatures, and quietly interviewed nurses he trusted. Every detail pointed in the same direction. Dr. Rowan Ellis had been manipulating records, and whatever his motive had been years ago, he was still positioned close enough to intervene in patient cases today. And Mara was now under his radar. Adrian knew he needed proof before taking action, but time was running out. Mara's condition could not afford the risk of even a small interference. On the third morning, Mara arrived for her scheduled check-in. She walked down the hallway with her sketchbook held close, unaware that the entire atmosphere of the clinic had shifted. Everyone seemed to move with more purpose. The staff spoke in lower voices. Security personnel lingered near the administrative wing. When she stepped into Adrian's office, she immediately sensed something different. "Dr. Hale?" she asked softly. "Are you all right?" He looked up from his desk. His expression was controlled, but there was a sharp tension beneath it. "I am fine. But today will be different." She sat slowly. "Different how?" Adrian closed the folder in front of him and moved to the chair across from her. "Mara, I need you to listen carefully. The treatment plan is working, but I discovered something that could put you at risk. I cannot give you full details yet, but I will not allow anyone to interfere with your care." Her breath caught. "Is someone trying to?" He hesitated, then answered with honesty. "There is a doctor who acted unethically in a past case similar to yours." I have reasons to believe he might attempt to repeat that behavior. I am taking steps to stop him before he can get anywhere near your file." Mara's hands trembled slightly on her sketchbook. "This is about the patient you could not save, is that right?" His eyes softened. "Yes. I blamed myself for years. But it appears someone else was responsible for the complications. That same person is still working in this building." Fear flickered through her expression, but so did something else, trust. "What do you need me to do?" "Just stay close to me during your visits," he said. "And if anyone you do not recognize asks about your condition, you come directly to me. No exceptions." She nodded, gripping her sketchbook tighter. A sudden knock sounded on the door. Adrian's shoulders tensed before he turned. "Come in." The door opened, and Dr. Rowan Ellis stepped inside with a polite smile that never reached his eyes. "Adrian, I heard you were requesting patient logs from the archive. Thought I would check on you." Adrian's posture straightened. "I am busy." Rowan's gaze drifted to Mara. "This must be the case you have been so secretive about." Mara tried to shrink into the chair, but Adrian stepped forward, placing himself slightly between them. His voice was calm, but edged with warning. "Her name is not yours to know." Rowan raised an eyebrow. "You are unusually protective. Reminds me of a case from years ago. The one you—" "That is enough," Adrian cut in. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Rowan smirked, then placed a folder on the desk. "Well, if you need anything, you know where to find me." He left without another word. The silence that followed felt heavy, as if the walls themselves had absorbed the tension. Mara looked at Adrian, worry etched into her face. "He scares me." "He should not," Adrian said firmly. "Because I am here. And I am not letting him near your treatment." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Why would he want to interfere?" "Ambition," Adrian answered. "Pride. He has always believed in experimental shortcuts. He blames me for exposing flaws in his research years ago. He may see your condition as an opportunity to prove something." Mara inhaled shakily. I just want to get better." "You will," Adrian said gently. "But I need to make sure the people around you have the right intentions." He sat across from her again, lowering his voice. "Mara, things may escalate in the next few days. There will be internal investigations, and I might be pulled into meetings. But no matter how chaotic it becomes, your care remains my priority." Her eyes glistened. "Thank you for fighting for me. It is not just for you," he said quietly. "It is for the truth. For what should have happened years ago." For a moment, they shared a silent understanding. One formed not just from fear, but from connection, trust, and the fragile realization that their lives had become tightly woven. And as Mara left the office, Adrian watched her go with a renewed resolve. This was no longer about redemption. This was about justice. And he was ready for the storm that was coming. 2 days later, the investigation inside Carter Medical Institute reached its peak. Adrian had submitted evidence, logs, and discrepancies that could no longer be ignored. Meetings ran long, security teams reviewed footage, and administrative staff whispered in hallways. By noon, the truth was undeniable. Dr. Rowan Ellis had manipulated medical records in the past, and he had attempted to access Mara's file without authorization. By late afternoon, Rowan was escorted out of the building. His protest echoed down the marble corridor, but no one listened. His access was revoked, his credentials suspended, and a formal inquiry opened against him. The crisis had ended. But for Adrian, something much more personal remained unfinished. He stepped out of the administrative wing, exhaustion in every stride, and found Mara waiting in the quiet lobby. She was sitting on a cushioned bench, her sketchbook in her lap, her fingers tapping nervously against the cover. When she saw him, she stood immediately. "Is it over?" "It is," he said softly. "You are safe now." Relief washed over her face, but it was followed by something deeper, gratitude shaped by every moment he had protected her, listened to her, and never once dismissed her fear. "I do not know how to thank you," she whispered. "You do not have to," he replied. "You trusted me. That is worth more than anything." She hesitated before opening her sketchbook. Inside was a new drawing, one she had finished the night before. Delicate lines formed the silhouette of 2 hands, one steady and one trembling, reaching toward each other. "This is what it felt like," she said quietly. "The day you told me I was not alone." He stared at the drawing, moved more deeply than he expected. "May I keep this?" She nodded, cheeks warming. "It is yours." He closed the sketchbook gently, as if it were something fragile and precious. Mara, your condition is manageable now. With consistent treatment, your future is not limited. You can live fully. You can do anything you want. Her eyes glistened. I want to get better. I want to keep drawing. And I want to keep working with you. His voice lowered, warmer than it had ever been. I would like that. For a moment, they simply stood there, the world outside the hospital humming quietly, the sharp tension of the past days replaced with a calm that felt almost unreal. Then Adrian straightened slightly. Before you go, there is something I want to show you. He led her down the corridor to a small gallery space near the main lobby. Soft lights illuminated a single framed piece on the wall. Her breath caught. It was her drawing. The one she had shown him during her symptom tracking. The one that captured her pain, her progress, and her hope. At the bottom of the frame was a small plaque. Resilience. The Art of Healing by Mara Bennett. She covered her mouth with her hand, stunned. You did this. Yes, he said gently. Your story matters. And your strength deserves to be seen. Tears filled her eyes. Not from fear this time, but from something warm and steady filling the space where loneliness used to live. Adrian stepped beside her, his voice quiet. You walked into my office as a patient, but you reminded me why I became a doctor in the first place. She looked up at him, her voice barely a whisper. And you reminded me that healing is possible. The gallery lights shone softly around them as the weight of the past finally lifted. In that moment, neither of them stood as doctor and patient, or as a man haunted by failure and a girl afraid to be seen. They stood as two people who had helped each other heal in ways neither had expected. And for the first time, both finally felt whole.